Hello and welcome back to Ask Master with me, your host, Aaliyah Nuru, and Master Sri Akashana, who's going to be answering all your questions. Today,
And
we
Ali is
have-
going to answer a few or two, especially when we've got this topic.
I'll try and answer as much as I possibly can. But today, we have a very interesting...
We're talking about heart chakra.
No, we're talking... Well, it connects, but we're talking about relationships today. This is a topic that a lot of you have asked consistently. One thing that people are consistent with is this whole relationship thing. And there's so many different questions around relationships. And coming from a lot of different cultures and backgrounds, I think it's been instilled in us that relationships have to be when I say relationships, I mean in particular romantic relationships and marriages and partners. It has to be a part of life. So the question is, does it have to be a part of life? Why is there so much hurt and disconnect around it? And why is it such a huge thing around the world where everybody is hurting so much around relationships? Like, why I mean, there's so many different types of relationships. There's, parents, there's siblings, there's friendships, but this one particular thing, romantic relationships, this red heart that everybody is just so obsessed over. Why?
Attachment, I think that's the word I would use. Attachment becomes the problem. Ownership, feeling that one becomes one's possession.
And completion as well, you
Yeah.
complete me.
Yeah.
You're part of
Those
me.
are all the memes and quotes and things that is very fancy and people like to hear. You make me complete, which then becomes a problem because it's like
When they left,
it's
half of
dependent.
you is
It's
gone.
it's
Yeah.
very dependent, and the words people say, and I'm sure everybody who's listening to the show has sometime or some point in their life said, "I can't live without you," which is a huge statement. It's a very huge statement for one to not be able to live with someone. Have you ever said that before, Aaliyah?
No, when I was younger.
Last year, when I was young.
No, not last year. But I used to be, I am a hopeless romantic. I will admit, I do like romance. But when I was younger, I was in very obsessive relationships. So
And which side was obsessive?
well,
I like that laugh. What was that?
I gave a lot into my relationships, but a few
Well, when
of
you
them-
give a lot into a relationship, then
Meaning
you
I
become
gave-
more obsessive, right?
well,
Because it's like,
that's-
I give you so much.
well, yeah,
I
but
do all this for you.
I feel
What do you do
like-
for me?
Well, on my end, I feel like it became so upset. Like, I've actually had like actual obsessive stalkery, like full
Well, you still
on.
do today. That's
No. I mean, like really intense, like hacking into all my accounts, like
That's
not
normal.
letting.
These-
That's normal.
yeah, I mean, children these days, they're doing a lot more than that. It's
Threats, like though I've had it all. So when I say I've been in obsessive relationships, I mean like not nice obsessive relationships. It gets to the point where it doesn't make sense. It's like, you're literally torturing me right now. How do you expect me to ever? And they do it with the expectation that I want you to come back. It's like, what?
but I think this is the thing when they say lost in love, right? When they say lost in love, and I think that what it really means that people don't understand. I mean, if we look at the psychology behind it, and the reason behind that is actually because when emotions are high, intelligence is low.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the time when we get so emotional, emotion, energy and motion now on different contexts is we get very, very emotional about things, scattered. Energy is very scattered, very chaotic. We end up saying a lot of things that hurt other people, and then we come back to regret and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say that, right? So I think that when you talk about this obsessive is actually still is still, I would say, surface level, and I would say is still not as critical as what some people may even be experiencing right now, which is going on to abuse, physical abuse or verbal abuse or, sexual abuse. There's a lot of things that is going on. And I think it's the result of this is the problem is ego. The problem is feeding ego. The problem is attachment. The problem is ownership. And I think that if one could actually go on the journey of start saying that, how can I, if I was to love someone, do I want them to be happy? And if I want them to be happy, by making them unhappy, to be in my possession and listen to my commands, is that really love? And I think this becomes the problem.
It's also about, I mean, if you say that you love someone and they're unhappy but you won't let them go, do you really love them, or do you love yourself? And
I love you, that's why I can't live without you.
Yeah,
it's like, but you're putting each other in pain right now. It's like,
but it's crazy though, because sometimes it gets to the point where people kill themselves and hurt themselves over relationships. If they can't hurt the other person, it like, especially with teenagers and stuff, when I was growing up in high school, the self-harm thing, like cutting your own arms, or like there was this guy who kind of he wrote my name in with like a match, like my initials, because I wouldn't like go out with him, and it was just like like, how does
Dan's face is just like
it's no, like, people do some really crazy stuff. And one thing I've noticed though is the crazier the stuff is more around the raise, where you've been raised, and the culture and the importance people place around having another, like your other half, like as they say, or like a partner or a marriage, or the importance culture plays, but then also like the brainwashing that you've grown up around, the books that you read, the movies you watch. Like, for instance, Bollywood. Every single Bollywood movie has a love story. Every single one. And it plays a huge part.
I think everyone ends up in eloping, right?
there's always the dancing around the trees.
That's why you have a lot of Indian kids running away from home these days.
But it is intense though, and I grew up watching Bollywood movies. I grew up watching all this dramatic,
Did you
series.
ever run away from home?
I thought about it. I won't lie. I did think about it. But
actually, in a lot of questions we get on the channel is actually from like different cultures, like the Indian culture and how upbringing, usually anyway, is where very protective parents and all the rest of it, and that's the problem. It's like my parents won't agree with me and him, or me and her, and I think that becomes a little challenging as well. I think
there's a lot of different things around relationships. It's around your actual like relationship with the person, and then it's around like your surroundings and your environment and what you've grown up in, and the expectations you have from a relationship, and then comes in with different cultures, with your parents agreeing to you being in a relationship with someone else, and how do you see that, Aaliyah?
Like, how do you see that? Like, people who two people deeply in love, no problems, no nothing, and parents are disagreeing. What advice would you give in that situation? I'm just intrigued to know.
Well, that's actually really interesting, because I've actually been in that situation, and I grew up with strict parents, and okay, we're getting really deep here. I wasn't expecting this.
I told you we should change the sign to ask Aaliyah, not ask Master.
Yeah, I feel like people should be able to make their own decisions, especially if you're in love with someone. I get where a lot of parents come from, and a lot of the times the parents make sense.
Now all the parents watching is like, please unsubscribe.
My mom, my dad, my whole family will be like, but yeah, a lot of the time I get where parents are coming from, when they say no and when they refuse, and they have that whole thing. They usually have reasons as to why.
They always have reasons.
Yeah.
People always have reasons.
But again, it's like, you have to let your child go out and learn and make those mistakes. And
So this message is now for the parents that are listening out
yeah,
there.
this is for the parents. This is for all the friends, everyone that feels like they need to intrude in a relationship, even if it's with people who are in, say, toxic relationships. If it's with people who, you sometimes have those friends that she keeps going back to her boyfriend, or the guy that keeps going back again and again. They break up and make up and break up and make up, and you just get so tired of like telling them. Sometimes you just need to let them make those mistakes.
Let them be, because
Let them be, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
I think
their journey.
Now this whole topic has gone on to parenting now. But I think it's important to address that part. Then at least we have a part of it addressed, and we can at least then give some advice to the younger ones or the people who are stuck in those situations. Because I think that parents are a lot of the time, by thinking they can protect, which they can't. And another thing as well, when we fight for something, rebel happens as well. And when we fight for something, people end up needing to do something behind our back instead, right? So it's like, if we want, we can't control by trying to control. Instead, it's like saying, hey, no matter, I mean, we know as just normal forces of nature, telling a kid, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. What does a kid do? A kid, don't climb on that thing, don't climb on that thing. What do? They climb. So instead, it's like, okay, learn to let them be, because actually through their mistakes, because whether you try to control them or not, unless you really handcuff them, which please don't, right? This advice didn't come from here. Handcuff them and lock them in a box, right? Apart from doing that, you actually can't control, because they will just be doing it behind your back otherwise, right? Or if they're not doing it behind your back, they're probably suffering from some sort of depression, sitting there and really upset about themselves. They may even, there's things happening all the time, suicide, all of these things is the equation of it. Instead of saying, let them be, let them fall over. Once they fall over, they will stand up and learn. That's the best way to learn, by telling them to never, okay, you may be able to control them for the next 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, but let me tell you something. One day they're going to rebel, and they want to find out for themselves. So I think that part, let's put that part to bed.
Well, just on what you were saying, I actually had a conversation yesterday with a friend, and he's from exactly the same background as me, and exactly same culture, same country, every single thing exactly the same. And he was just talking about how he was talking to me about this one summer where, he did all the things. He used to drink, get high, like do everything that kids, teenagers growing up do, have house parties, drive without a license. Not that I'm saying you should do this or that's okay. Don't do it. But and how he was just laughing. He's like, my parents trusted me way too much, like they still have never figured out what I did. But now he's grown up. He's like a fully balanced person. He's like, I'm not interested in doing all of that. He's focusing on whatever he's focusing on. And then there was someone else, another girl, who was exactly the opposite. She grew up with really, really strict parents, and she was never allowed to do anything. But the thing is that she was such a good girl. Like, she actually never did anything, but her parents never trusted her. They never allowed her to go out. They didn't allow her to do a lot of things. And if she did something really small, it would just blow up in her face, and she'd always get in trouble about it. And she said, I never did anything, but my parents still never trusted me. But now, as she's older, she's doing all those things, now that she can, she's doing all those things. But she's
totally
also
go the other way because they rebel, isn't it?
Exactly. But she's
suppressed
also
energy, that is.
She doesn't know how to. She feels like she's not lived her life. She feels like she doesn't know half the things that half the experiences that she wished she had. And now she's actually going on and she's doing things when she's not supposed to be doing, when she's supposed to be focusing on other things, she's...
Who is this person? What's her name?
I can't. It's me. No, I'm joking. It's not me. But, well, my story is very similar, but only I'm not.
Yeah, she just rebelled just now. She's doing all the rebellion stuff now.
But it's just showing you that, people need to be on their journey. They need to go. They need to stumble and fall so they can, get up. It's like... In nursery, at schools, at stuff we teach with the children as well. There's a lot of things, that a lot of rules and regulations that came in around children because of laws and documents and people who are suing, like nurseries and stuff, because the child got hurt for this or that. So a lot of paperwork came in, and then it started like really overprotecting the children. But then it was noticed on a large scale how overprotecting the child, actually they had no sense of risk management.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to.
Yeah, it's taking away their normal practices and
like
human nature.
just
right?
their ability to function
It is.
and see when risk is coming in and how to handle it, and small things like they wouldn't let children fall down, and like that's a part of life. And now it's actually come into the syllabus.
You know
where
what? I love how you started the session bringing in love. Now we're on the topic of parenting.
and children. Well, we'll finish the parenting and children off really fast, but just a message to parents out there. And I mean, if you're working with children, you know that we actually have a whole system around actually making sure that children are getting enough. They're falling down enough to know how to pick themselves up, basically.
Give them the opportunity
Yeah.
to make mistakes. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's like a message for parents everywhere, but especially for really strict parents who feel like they're protecting their children by really
Stop it.
holding them.
Aaliyah saying, telling you to stop
it. Please stop. Really, like you're not doing anyone any favors, because at the end your child will actually end up not even being close to you, because that affects your relationship with your children as well. Then they don't trust you. They don't want to be. They don't want to tell you anything.
And what about the people who are going through that right now with their parents controlling? What's your advice to them?
I feel like my advice to them is when you grow up with controlling parents, especially from like a family that I come from, that I found it really hard, is that they don't stop controlling you when you reach a certain age. I thought, okay, I'm married now. Okay, I'm 18, I'm 21, I'm 25, and just I had this conversation with my mom.
Never
where
stops.
She kept telling me what to do, and I.
But it's
and I
only
said
because
to
you
her,
give them control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you
yeah.
take that control away, sorry, parents. No, your first thing, I want to do this, I think, in a very, very logical way. Number one, you should have an open and honest conversation with your parent. Like, speak from heart. No fighting. Don't fight, because fight will always just fight back, right? Just speak from your heart. Number two, get them to watch this episode. Okay? Because hearing sometimes from a third perspective might give a different perspective, might give a different light. Okay? Number three, very stubborn parents will stay the same. No, you shouldn't even be listening to this. Then they'll get you to unsubscribe to this channel, right? Number four, you have no choice but to then start understanding this. Number one, okay, we can say, listen to parent, stay locked in that confined space. But then we must somehow learn to love that situation. And if we don't love that situation, and this is what my master said many, many years ago, is love starts from self-love. We know, and I'm sure you would agree with this as well, is that we know they're coming from a place of love when they're trying to protect us. It's just they don't know the best way to protect us right now. But they are coming from love. But in reality, how I seen it through, because I felt like I had to rebel. And people look at my journey and say, oh, wow, it's easy for you to become successful. Actually, no. I understand, because my parents were very strict, coming from Asian background as well, as very strict. I ran away from home. I'm not saying that's a good, that's not the advice for people. But I understood one thing, which was my parents wanted the best for me. That's why they were so protective. And why did they want the best for me? Because they wanted to see me shine. They wanted to see me successful. They wanted to see me happy. I knew deep down inside, if I was happy and everything was successful, they would be happy. So I also knew by staying as a stuck spirit, a stuck soul in a confined space, I would never be able to be happy. I could pretend, but people can read past pretending. So I had to make my choice to say, okay, if I'm going to make this choice to do what I want to do against what they believe right now, then I must ensure I'm going to be successful at this. Meaning I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be extremely successful. I'm going to be in a place where they will look at me and say, wow. And just be able to see my success to even change their belief system in that way, right? And that is the result.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy because, Aaliyah, it was probably a year or 2 years, I wasn't speaking to my parents. And for a teenager, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all because I loved them dearly. I really did. But the interesting thing is, come look at today, I know I have the proudest parents out there. They look at me, they're just so happy. They're so proud. And, it's like, but I had to love myself enough to give myself the freedom to feed that soul what it desires to be able to be free and to be happy. And as a result of that today, I see them looking at what I do and actually, even as crazy as it sounds, learning from that,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Aaliyah. Are you you have siblings or?
Yeah, 3 siblings.
Are you eldest
Younger.
or young?
I'm the oldest.
You're oldest. I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but I had to do the dirty work
Yes.
so that the parents changed their mindset. And then for the younger ones, I'm not saying it was easy, but it's a lot easier. Is it the same with you?
Yeah. Oh, so the stuff that my siblings get away with, it's just appalling.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes it just something, because even parents is a learning curve, especially parents, especially from the eldest one. They're learning to be a parent. How do I love? How do I look after? How do I protect? So they're learning. So it's all a learning curve itself. So when we come to the understanding of that, hey, actually deep down inside, all they want us to be happy. Yeah. So my question to you is, when the actions you're going to take, are you responsible enough to ensure that you are safe and you are happy? Because if you are, I think if you can get that result, your parents eventually, when the stubbornness has gone, they will start to understand.
Yeah. Yep. That's beautiful.
I think because of the show length, we have to finish there.
Yeah, we do.
Meaning that we're gonna have to talk about heartbreak another time. Today was more about eloping.
Yeah, I think we can talk about heartbreak,
how to deal with parents,
parenting,
not
a lot more about this later as well. So if you want more on heartbreak, if you want more on parenting,
should I get my ex back? All these questions.
should I bother getting my ex back? Yeah, any of those questions that you have, let us know. Do you want us to talk about heartbreak? Do you want us to talk more about parenting? Siblings,
maybe not talk about heartbreak, but how to deal with things like that.
Well,
right?
relationships in general, just this big red heart here. So if you do want to know more, let us know below, and also again, let us know where you're tuning in from. But that is all for today, and make sure you subscribe, like, and salam, namaste.
Namaste.